Uh, let's talk about security and the situation in the Middle East. And can you talk about what do we need to do as a nation to protect ourselves and to deal with the ISIS situation in the Middle East?
Yeah. First off, imagine if Pat Toomey and others hadn't voted for that tragedy in Iraq, we wouldn't deal with ISIS today. But it's here. And I think, frankly, the administration has been slow to properly address the issue. First of all, ISIS got within 60 miles of Baghdad before we even began to respond. And that was a response 5 or 6 months later. We were slow to give arms to the more moderate rebels and permitted a vacuum to exist. Because when we give radios to rebels, which we earlier did, we put chips in them that kind of figure out who's who in the zoo. What do we do now? I've advocated this, written op-eds on it, as you know, and been on television for months, and we're slowly coming to this. Treat ISIS like it is. It is not just an international terrorist organization, it is a state, an illegitimate state. But it has control of territory the size of Belgium, control of population the number of Norway. And when you go after a state, you just don't pick off the top leaders and mid-level leaders like a terrorist organization. You knock the legs out from under a state, like we did in that tragic misadventure of Iraq. We should have been going after the crude power production facilities. We were going after the refined oil. And by shutting down the oil fields, that's $2 trillion of assets that the ISIS controls. They get roughly $600 to $800 million a year from just pumping it and selling it as crude. We did it wrong. We were going after refined. Close down that revenue. Then strike all the sources of collecting the money and the infrastructure of their government. And they take old government facilities that collect the money. That's approximately about another $1 to $2 billion every year. The reason this is important, the only reason they are able to do neo-simultaneous terrorist strike from Ankara to Beirut to the Russian airline in Egypt to Paris is because of the money, the revenue. Shut it down, knock it down. If you noticed, after Paris strike, France struck ISIS. We gave them the target list of government infrastructure that was collecting the money. We hadn't done it. Second, and this is most key, almost most key, diplomacy. We have to accept that Assad doesn't threaten us today. Russia and Iran, nations often who are against our interest, are there on the ground. Iran's lost 3,000 soldiers. We have to bring together a coalition of convenience and say, okay, President Assad, we're going to let you stay for some time. But we're going to have a compromise then with Russia and Iran and Saudi Arabia, who's brought together 32 Sunni militias, and have the Sunnis lead the battle so it's Arab on Arab. And then we have them behind them and they do the groundwork.